When We Are Brave podcast, Tim. I'm so excited to have you here. This is such an honour to have you on the show. For those of you out there who don't know Tim Richardson is my local Member of Parliament. He's a member for Mordialloc in Victoria Parliament in Australia. And he has served in our community. He's actually an amazing service to our community, which is why I was so excited to have him on the show. He was elected in 2014, and he is also serving in the Parliament as the Parliamentary Secretary for Schools, which is such an important role in our government, particularly at the moment with COVID happening. And he lives locally in Chelsea, Victoria, with his beautiful wife and daughter. So thank you so much, Tim, for being on the show.
Tiffany, I'm absolutely thrilled and honoured to be with you. And thank you for that warm introduction. And it's great to catch up. I've been a fan of your podcast. It's compelling and beautiful to listen to some of the stories and connections that you're forming and bringing positivity to the world. And thank you for everything that you do. It's amazing.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love doing it. I'm hoping, Tim, that you can shed some light onto the international audience that is on the When We Are Brave podcast to tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got into politics, and tell us a bit about your story and your journey.
Yeah, so I never, as a young person growing up in Australia, didn't really comprehend politics or going into politics. It was actually my mum who was a real influence on me, and probably when she was a single mum and watching her journey and her story raising my sister and I, she was my inspiration and really my driving force. And so I watched a very strong woman in my life who was working 2 jobs to put through my sister and I through school. We went through the public education system, and I saw just her determination to bring a better life for my sister and I. And that was really my journey growing up in the eastern suburbs of Victoria in Australia, all the way down the bottom for anyone listening around the world. It's a bit colder down there, Tiff, for both of us, but it was. I was very lucky. My mum always sacrificed to put the best foot forward for my sister and I, and I think that set me up longer term for the person I've become now. It was not until I really went through to university later on and I was studying law and business at Deakin University, one of our unis, and I really connected with wanting a sense of purpose, and politics felt right, even though the political scene across Australia and indeed across the world can be quite an adversarial system. I actually love that politics really is local, and the notion that you could impact the lives in a really positive way of other people if you're willing to work hard and represent people and care about their lives and their output as well. I really connected with that. So got involved. I worked for our federal member, actually, Mark Papis, who was the Attorney General of Australia as well. And then I had a go myself, and that was a daunting task, but here I am today. And in the work that I do now, I'm the Assistant Minister for School Education in Victoria, which is representing over 1 million school students in more than 2,000 schools. So that is something that I absolutely love and connect with, is our next generation of future leaders and young people.
And you do an amazing job too at that, Tim, especially at the moment with COVID. I mean, so many of us have been struggling with our homeschooling or succeeding, as my son is loving being at home and not having to go to school. He's dreading going back. But you've definitely really been putting in the hard yards, and all of our teachers and all of our nurses and doctors out there really putting in a lot of hard yards at the moment. And I give my heartfelt thanks to all of them. So, Tim, I'd like to know, in this time and also times before, what does it mean to you to live your best and bravest life?
Yeah, I think your point perfectly sums up, the community connection that we see now. And we're seeing our health workers, our nurses, our doctors, but ordinary people in our community who are essential workers who are doing amazing things to support others during this time as well. And I always come back to what centres me is purpose, and it being in that moment and trying to connect with what is the purpose, whether it's in the work that I do in the local community, the work that you do in supporting people to live a brave and their best life. It's trying to connect with, well, what's the purpose and meaning that we all bring, and how is that human connection and interaction that we have each and every day, how do we bring positivity that adds to yesterday, or brings about new positivity that someone might not be experiencing at the moment. So I really connect with how in the hours that I spend each day, how can I make an impact on someone positively? And we see that like in such uncertain times with the coronavirus pandemic. I love that Facebook group page, The Kindness Pandemic. That's something I really connect with, like doing those little things right now to try to benefit others. And I think purpose and meaning and, the short time that we get on this world, how do we bring some sort of hope and positivity and connection is something I really connect with. And that can be small things like reaching out to a neighbour and just making sure that they're okay, all the way through to how can an idea turn into a concept, can turn into a podcast, can it turn into an education policy, all these things, how can we bring that? And I think, individually, people each and every day front up, whether they're going through challenges themselves or they're taking themselves out of their comfort zone. To be brave, to be courageous is a difficult thing. And I think that's something that we really need to reflect on, and how do we inspire people to try their best or even just get through the day, because a lot of people are doing it tough at the moment.
Yeah, they sure are. There's a lot of lonely people, a lot of people who are really feeling disconnected as well. And that's one of the great things about podcasts, is that you can feel like you're having a conversation with someone, whether you're cooking dinner or standing out in the garden having a cup of tea or wherever you are, and lots of different times that you can use it. So that's another way that we can feel that we're connected with other people.
That's right.
Yeah. How can we as a community support each other? You've mentioned a few things that we can do during times of adversity and moving forward in our world. When all of this is over, I know there's a lot of people feeling quite anxious about, well, how does the future look? How do I live in a new world where there is social distancing, where there are going to be changes continually happening? And I think that that's something that we all need to be thinking about at this point in time, because the restrictions are slowly, in Victoria in particular, they're slowly changing and they're lifting, and all different countries across the world, they're slowly evolving, and we're working out where we're headed. How as a community do you think we can help each other moving forward?
It's a really, really interesting time for us, isn't it? I mean, across the world, we've seen, sadly, the toll of coronavirus impact substantially on communities, and it's been really tragic in parts of our world. And we send our love and affection to those that have been impacted during this time. And it's going to be really difficult going forward for those communities to try to get some sort of normality. Like, how do we? It's only been 2 months really since the coronavirus pandemic really took off, and so how do we get some sort of normality? I think it comes back to our communities, our sense of purpose, our sense of being, our sense of connection to home and our friends and our family. And as we ease out of restrictions, I think that humanisation of our community as well. I mean, you've probably seen as well, Tiffany, as you've been out in the community, social distancing is exercising or walking, getting around on our beautiful beach in Victoria. People just stop to say hello. Generally, you might just go past and a few might say hello, but I've gone out and everyone's saying hello, asking how you're going, always at a social distance. But human connection people are really longing for. And I think during isolation, people have really felt that that's what we've been missing. And you miss those things, those conversations down at the school gate, those conversations with our community, down at the sporting clubs or in workplaces. And I think that will be how we connect and support one another. But mental health and wellbeing, and especially in my space in education policy, is really important. Like, kids are feeling a lot of pressure and a lot of challenges at the moment, and anxiety whether they're going to be safe going back to school, and how do we give them that comfort and that support as well. We've got to be nurturing, we've got to be caring, and I think reassure people that yes, we've gone through such adversity as a world. Australia has been luckier than other nations, but we can't be complacent, and we have to reach out and look out for each other during this time as well. And I think in these moments, this is where going that extra mile to try to help others and bring positivity is really important. And as a policymaker, as someone in a parliament in Australia, it's really important that we think of policies that support that, and those restrictions as they ease. We think of what people need, and we've just recently allowed people to get to seeing friends and family, and that's one of the first things, because we know how important that is for people's well-being. So it's a real challenge. And on another side is then resourcing, because we know that the second wave of the pandemic, and something I know you're really passionate about is mental health and well-being. Or let's make sure that the resources are in place for when people feel that burden and that pressure and that anxiety, that they know they can turn to those support services and get the help that they need. So I think that's really critical as we go forward.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. In the Yale University, they have a free course on happiness, and it's not
Wow.
the largest. It's the largest applied course that people go to. Enrolled, that's the word I'm thinking of. It's the largest course enrolled across the globe. It's amazing. And one of the research outcomes that they found was that the most important thing to a person's well-being and happiness is human connection. And I totally understand that from a personal point of view, but also at this particular time when that is something that we are all really longing for. So some really good tips in there on how we can help each other move forward and reach out. And there's lots of different ways we can do that, isn't there? Like we can have Zoom chats like this one, and we can make phone calls and utilize FaceTime and those sorts of things so that people know that they are thought of. There is always someone at the end of the line willing to hear what you have to say, even if it's, I watered the garden today, or I'm feeling really lonely, or I'm feeling really happy because something amazing happened in my life today. I had an interview with Tim Richardson. So, I think we need to we need to make sure that we are using those resources that are available. And for those people out there, there's lots of free facilities and chat lines like Lifeline that you can go and you can make phone calls, and they are there. There is a person at the end of the line waiting to talk just to you.
That's right. I think your point about happiness is absolutely everything. And how do we bring that to others? Lozzie and I, my beautiful wife and I, she's been doing a lot of cooking, let's be honest. And lemon curd, we've been circulating. We've got a massive lemon tree, hundreds of lemons it seems, and we've just been, dropping it off on the neighbour's doorstep with a ribbon on, and just trying to do little things to connect and support one another, and connecting online. Like this has been a beautiful thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. We have an abundance of marmalade, so we could do a swap if you like. We've been making marmalade.
Now, for people watching around and tuning in around Australia and internationally, Tiffany, do you deliver the marmalade though?
Yes, I do. I do deliver them. I go for my little walk with my puppy dogs, and we go and deliver some marmalade when we're almost out now. Actually, we have to make some more.
Fantastic.
We will. So we've talked about some really great tools and how we can help us to move forward. But what's your personal favourite tool that helps you personally and also helps our community to feel brave in their life? Because as you said before, we really have to take steps forward that are challenging at any time in our life. It may not just be during this COVID pandemic, but any time when we're feeling there's a sense of uncertainty or discomfort. And we need to be brave, take those steps to move forward in our life. So what are some of your favourite tools to do that?
So it's something that I'm really passionate about. I am someone who lives with anxiety. So I feel sometimes the weight and pressure of the world from time to time. And I find sometimes just becoming back to centre in who I am and mindfulness. I love just being able to, whether it's just sitting down by the beach and tuning out for a bit, or just getting that time to reflect and I guess go into yourself and just bring it back to the moment, what you can control, and not being overwhelmed. That's something that I've really connected with. It's helped me a lot in the work that I do, because you can run, I guess, get away from some of the things that centre you around your purpose and the work that you do. And I'm very centred around my family, my wife Lauren and my daughter Paisley, and I find for me individually, that's a really important tool. And a lot of my friends and colleagues I've reached out to, I've said, if you're practicing mindfulness and that connection to the moment and being in the present has really helped me to really be centered, and it de-stresses me. I think we can all lose sight of things or lose track and get really caught up in our our thoughts and our challenges sometimes. So personally, that's been a tool that I was quite skeptical at the time when it was first recommended to me, but I then practiced it a bit, like sitting and regulating breathing. I thought, what am I doing here? Like, I'm not really Zen, but I've really come to love and appreciate just in the moments with the technological overload and news that we get each and every day, just to be centered, be at one with self. That's a tool that I've used personally. I think more broadly, we have a platform where we can connect with tens of thousands of people very quickly through social media. And I use that as a tool now to really bring positivity, like we're talking today on your podcast, and the inspiration and journey that you've been on and shared that to bring positivity. I try that through social media and be really positive and practical. And I think sometimes that's implied, and during these COVID-19 challenges we've faced around the world, even just being positive about our community and our journey, and just trying to bring some normality with how we connect as well, as something I really love to do, and I feel a responsibility to bring some of that calm to our community. So I feel that's a positive way in our little area in Australia, that we can bring some joy and some happiness to others as well. So yeah, I think that's some of the tools are really important. I think there's people have all got to look after themselves for their mental health and well-being and find what works for them. Mindfulness really helped me, but in as well that I guess that connection with others, if you can take a moment to be positive and help others, I really love and connect to that as well. So yeah, I remember sharing my story with students. I really went and struggled through anxiety in high school, and I didn't realise telling that story would help others. And a young girl came up to me who was doing year 12 across 2 years, and she said to me, and I was the assistant minister at the time, and she came up to me, she said to me, "I've never met anyone with anxiety who is successful." And I nearly burst into tears in that moment, because I thought her view of her life was that she wouldn't be able to be successful. And I thought in that moment, letting her know that her life is full of happiness and joy. She was 19 at the time. And I thought, you've got so much to give to the world. You're an amazing young person. How can you feel that way? And I think that's ways that through our communication and sharing our feelings and our stories, it's really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's really fantastic. Eckhart Tolle talks about in his book, The Power of Now, if you can take a moment, you're in a busy world and a busy life. Say you're getting into the car and you have 10 seconds. If all you have in your day is 10 seconds, and you take that moment and you stop before you get in the car, and you're standing between the door of the car and about to get into the car, and you look at the sky, and you take that moment to appreciate the sky and to realize that you're alive and your heart is breathing and your heart is beating and your lungs are breathing, and appreciate that moment, that you're just in that one moment for 10 seconds. It will help lower levels of anxiety, stress, overwhelm, frustration. So you're absolutely right. Mindfulness is so, so important. And that's just a great tool. I'm a big fan of well-being and mindfulness, as you know.
You might need to teach me some tips, because I do get a little distracted.
It's very easy. It's very easy to do. I get distracted as well. Yeah, I do try and meditate every day, and I have lots of different routines and things that I do, which really help me have overcome when I've been anxious and recovering from PTSD and survivor's guilt and all of those other things. Lots of tools I've learned along that journey in my life the past 21 years. So, yeah, people want to tap into where you they can connect with you. Where can they find you, Tim?
Yeah, so we're probably most prevalent on Facebook. I've got my Facebook, which is just my name, Tim Richardson, and representing the Mordialloc district in Victoria, Australia. And so we live chat with people almost every day. We've got a constant stream of messages coming across all the time. And so we think, in a world where people feel quite disconnected to our systems of government and our elected officials, we like to bring my representation of the community to the grassroots. And I think it's like I'm local to the area that I live in. And so I think that people need to be able to access me, to be able to connect with me and my family. And I think that's a really important thing. So mainly through Facebook, our website, and if people are really keen, they can listen to me in the Parliament. But sometimes those speeches aren't as great as podcasts here today. Sometimes politicians waffle on a bit. But no, I think in a social media and instantaneous messaging era that we're in now, I actually really love that because people can access me almost any time. We get messages sometimes people need help in the middle of the night, and we're into action, my team, all the way through to schools that need us during the day. That's where we do a lot of our work. And years ago when I worked in public service, it was all through mail, it was all through hard copy, even fax was on that system now. Now these days it's far more connected and instantaneous, and we love that because we think we can help people instantly. So yeah, if you want to hit us up on the Facebook, tune in. We love to hear all the feedback from our community, and if we can bring some positivity or assistance to anyone, we're always there to help.
Great. And I've just got one other very small question, just in case people don't know, when you say you're there to help people, and I know that you are because I've come to you for many different things during the course of the time that I've been lucky enough to be a resident in your district. What are some of the things that people can actually come to you for? Because people get a bit confused about that side of things. So maybe just give some examples just to help people know.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people outside of a campaign really, they ask me, well, what do you do outside of an election campaign, all the banners, all the speeches and publicities and ads? And I normally say that I'm a consultant to the community. So in that moment, people might be struggling with, job losses that we've seen in Victoria and Australia with the coronavirus pandemic. So getting those support payments and assistance, it might be housing, it might be upgrades to schools, community groups, businesses, across the board, like grants and support that they need on that journey. So it's very much those kinds of things that interact with state and federal government services that we're really involved in. But probably our main inquiries are very local. They're around, my school needs these kinds of funding upgrades, or it might be, my neighbour needs this kind of support because they've lost their job and they need that support to connect with services. They need that funding, or they need that retraining and skills. So it's very much that local focus, and we get hundreds of inquiries a week come through for people seeking that support and assistance. And instinctively, people might not know that members of parliament, elected officials, can assist, and they can navigate those government services as well. We do that each and every day and make it easier for people. So it might be some of the tenancy issues that we've seen with landlords and tenants who are struggling to pay rent or make ends meet at the moment. Or it might be that you're just struggling to get by and you just need that mental health and wellbeing check-in and support. So some of it is an action, some of it's just being there as comfort as well. So, and then there's the bigger stuff, like we've got quite a bit on the go with our building works, our school upgrades, our local community upgrades and roads and rails. So we get a lot of inquiries like that on what needs to be done in our patch. So bit of I say consultant to the community, and it's almost like a one-stop shop. If you can't help, we'll certainly know who to send you to help.
Fantastic. That is so helpful, because I think a lot of people they think, oh, I'd love to know how he can help, or how can my state member help, or how can the government help me? And that's that's awesome to let everyone know that. So remember, people out there, if you're needing some form of assistance, get in touch with your local MP, because they really are an amazing tool and so valuable to us within the community. So Tim, thank you so much for being on the When We Are Brave podcast. You have been a wealth of inspiration and knowledge and positivity, and I am so privileged to have had you on today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honour, and keep bringing the amazing positivity to the world that you do. We'll keep being brave, and you will lead the way for us. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim. Have a great day.
You too.